Hi, everyone. Welcome to Reading Between the Lines. I'm Sarah. I'm joined today by my dear friend, Carrie Veatch. Carrie is pretty amazing. I love her so much. She is a coach, she's a business consultant, and a short term rental expert, among many other things, which she can share about. But I wanted to bring Carrie on because in her Instagram feed, a couple times now, she has posted video of herself putting together, like literally building a little library. And so, Carrie, um, tell us a little bit more about yourself, and then we can talk a little bit more about why you are putting together the libraries.
Yeah. Hi, Sarah. Thanks so much for having me. I am so excited to be here. As you know, I'm a very enthusiastic person.
Yes.
Um, so I love a lot of things. And one of the things that I love, whether or not it reads in my bio or any place, is community. So I love people, community, and I have loved the concept of little free libraries for years. Like, I feel like I've known about them since the beginning, which I don't know the year, but they created them so that people in communities can share a book, they can take a book, they can leave a book, and it's like
Hmm.
your own little library, right? Literally the name.
Yep.
And so I was just like, oh my gosh, I want one of these because it's a place for people in your neighborhood, in your area,
Yeah.
to get a book and to share the
I
love of reading.
I love that. And I noticed that, so at first I thought you were just like creating this thing and like putting it in front of a property or in front of a house. And I mean, I've seen them other places, like in my community here in California, but um I noticed in one of your pictures that you do have like a little placard that says Little Free Library, and like it's numbered. And so I realized that this is kind of like more organized than than what I had originally thought. And so I don't know a lot about the Free Little Library, but what I did find out about the organization is that they are especially wanting to foster a love of reading to different parts of the nation, not only LGBTQ plus areas and people of color, but like in those communities, but also Indigenous communities. They're really trying
Mm.
to push putting these little libraries together in Indigenous communities as well, where books are few and far between. Um, so I wanted to ask you how did you get started? Like, how did you build this? And also, because I don't have any woodworking skills, and maybe some of our other listeners don't either. But so, did you get help? How did you do this? And what else was I going to ask? How long did it take you to build this little thing?
Well, I love that you think I built it myself, Sarah. I'm
Okay.
honored. I did
Okay.
not. Did
I know you had a
not.
friend help, but yeah.
I honestly, I probably could. I'm pretty handy, but I have a very good friend who's retired,
Mhm.
and so the short story, long, medium story is years ago, I found out that he was really good at woodworking. I was living in
Cool.
Asia and I wanted a food truck back then. And I
Mm.
found this food truck in Bangkok. I remember I sent him a photo and I was like, I want this. Can you make it for me?
Oh my
And he
gosh.
was like,
Okay.
it was like a whole food truck. And he's like,
Yeah.
yeah, but you got to come back to the US. And I was like, okay, okay. So anyway, that was years ago, right? And so then fast forward to last year, it was just about a year ago.
Okay.
I asked him, I went and volunteered for the day, like lead with service. I went and
Uh-huh.
volunteered at his little community cleanup, which I'm going to do
Okay.
again this weekend.
Good.
Um,
Cool.
so he and his wife own part of the road or adopt part of the road in an area, and once a year they go clean it up. So I went with another friend, and then I was like, "Ooh, I can ask him to build me my library because he told me he'd build me a food truck." And his wife was like,
Mhm.
"Of course he will build you that. He told you he'd build you a food truck." So, anyways, he's in his 70s. He's retired. He had all of the materials, which I think I told you,
Yeah.
um, himself. Like he already had them at his house. So he used all recycled materials, which I think it makes even cooler that it's in front of my house.
Yeah. I love that. Are you putting this in this is in front of your own house, is that right? And
Yes.
then I know that you have well, explain this a little bit because you also own other properties, like short-term rental properties. Are you
Hmm.
gonna put or have you thought about or are you allowed to put these little free libraries in front of those properties?
Yeah. So the fun part is, so my friend made it, and then I painted it. Right. Like
Mhm.
he did everything, and then I was responsible for painting it. Um, so I have a short-term rental at my house, but now I need to advertise because it's in the back of my house, and then I live at the
Okay.
front of the house.
Yeah.
So I need to advertise now to guests that I have books if they want to come borrow them.
Yeah.
One of my property clients of the short-term rentals that I manage, she has one in front of her house. So I just sent
Cool.
her a picture this week. She was all
Yeah.
excited to see mine. She's
That's
very
fun.
artsy. She's a artistic entrepreneur.
Love that.
So yeah, so I want to have more because I think the concept is so fun. And what I also have discovered is you can leave notes on, like, the reason I have the placard is because
Yeah.
I registered, and then you can be
Yeah.
on their map.
Oh,
And
nice. So
some
people
people,
can find you.
yeah, and then people also do other things. Like they could say, "Oh, I have extra dry goods in mine of like pantry supplies," or like there's unique ways that people are using it just in more ways than books.
To help the community. I think that's really
Yeah.
cool. It kind of do you remember this back in the day, there was, like, geocaching was a thing? Do you remember
Yeah.
that? It's
Yeah.
a little bit set up like geocaching where it's like you registered your location, and then you can also leave a note that, like, as you said, like, we also have dry goods or whatever. That's really cool. Um, awesome. Okay. So I thought you had also maybe created more than one because the one that you have is gorgeous. And I've seen different videos of it and I've seen you've painted it a beautiful color, the one that you have. Um, so I was especially impressed that you did that. So I guess you don't necessarily need woodworking skills. I have seen people use like old cabinets. Have you seen that sort of thing like or dressers even?
Yeah. So you can really use anything. Or if you have no skills whatsoever and you just have money and no time, you can buy them. They
I've
make
seen that
them.
too like on Etsy, right? Or
Yeah,
something like you could purchase one. Okay. Um
correct.
w- and then I don't know how much you can speak to this, but did you have to find out within your city if you were allowed to put this up in the front yard or how did that work? You just
Well,
did it. So,
I just did it.
okay, good.
Gerald and Tracy came over. We popped a bottle of
Okay.
wine in the street and we put it in the ground. That's
Very
what we
good.
did.
Okay, I love it. Okay. Wonderful. And then I assume that you stocked yours the very first time with just books you had around the house. And what kind of books did you put in there? And what are you finding that people are replacing those books with? Do the books come back? That's a lot of questions all at once, but
Yeah. So the fun part is, okay, so there was a little engineering problem when we put it together because
okay.
um so he had made it all, and then we were assembling the plexiglass like at my house.
Yeah.
And so the way it just like was too thick, so I had to do a little doctoring to it.
Okay.
Anyways, because I had to do that, I took the front off and I put a sign that said no books, please come back, because there was no front
Okay.
on it. I was gone for like 12 hours and people left books. It was so happy. I was
Oh
like, oh my
gosh.
gosh, I love these people.
That's
Um,
adorable. Okay, cool.
so those were my first books. There was like a Pippi Longstocking book and some other kid book, and like it was cute. So that
Love
happened,
it.
and then I, I mean, you know me, I'm very like personal development businessy. So some of my first books I put in there. I put Jen's Be Seen book in there because I
Cool.
had an extra
Cool.
copy. And there's a guy that I love. His name is Derek Sivers. He's an amazing
Mhm.
entrepreneur. I actually sent him a photo because two of his books, he lives all over the world, and we're like internet friends that we email every once in a while.
I love
And
that.
so I emailed him and sent him a picture, and he wrote me back and said how fun. They were gone,
That's
but
really
like I
cool.
I went on a 30-minute walk, and Jen's book and Derek's books were gone immediately.
That's Jen Gottlieb's Be Seen book, which I highly recommend. All right, so that's really exciting. I don't think we have one in my very rural community, but my husband is quite talented. He could definitely build me one. Um, and I think that this is going to be a great way for me to like kind of upcycle and share books with the community. I did a little bit of like research and I found out that there are 320 million books that end up in landfill sites every year. And this is a way to help prevent that, at least for a little bit longer until the books fall apart. But so if anyone has extra books laying around, this is a great way to find it, to repurpose them, to gift them to other people. So I wondered also, Carrie, I think I kind of alluded to this, but like, do the books come back, or is it just always people kind of like swap books, like they leave a book, take a book as well?
It's really just dependent on the people. I mean, you can take a
Yeah.
book and never bring a book back. You can
Okay.
bring 3 books. You
Yeah.
can take and give, like a swap.
I
Honestly,
love it.
anything really kind of goes.
Very fun. I also use an app called Pango. I don't know if you've heard of this. It's for reselling like your used books. And
Oh,
so
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I love doing that because I don't know how else to get rid of all these books that I buy. Because the library will not take them anymore because everyone else is donating all their books to the library. And the library's like, no, no, thank you, which I think is
Oh.
sad, but whatever, fine. So I've been using Pango to resell them, but I really don't care if I make a profit or not. Like I just want them to get into the hands of people who want to read them. So I do like the combination of like I could still sell books on Pango, but I could put up my own little free library and just send these books off into the ether that way. So very
You
cool.
100% need one, Sarah. I'm going
I
to
do.
commission your husband to make you
I
one.
I do. Um, I would love to talk a little bit about your gluten for gluten's sake business, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, so tell us about what for gluten's sake is.
Yeah, it feels very like full circle because it's kind of like I built the first dedicated gluten-free app years ago, and it was
Mhm.
funny because a gluten-free friend of mine saw a video and she was like, "Oh my gosh, was this 2021?" She sent me a message and I was like, "No, like 2019."
Oh, wow.
And she's like, "What?" And so I said, "Yeah, because I sold my app in 2020." So I was like, "I know it was
Very
before
cool.
2020." So yeah, so I built the first dedicated gluten-free app. I kind of got rid of a lot of that business. I was like, oh, I don't want to do that anymore. And life, and
Yeah,
I moved back from Vietnam. And I think like a lot of people, especially after COVID, like I was just really burnt out of being on Zooms, sitting on calls. I love people as much as I am very introverted in some ways. I'm like a thrive around people person.
yeah,
So I started running food tours because I have celiac disease. And if you're gluten free like me, like tours are terrible when they involve food because they never have anything that you can eat. And I'm like, why did I
right.
just spend $100 to eat a piece of lettuce? Like, no.
No, that's not
Um,
worth it.
yeah. So as you know, I got to be on live TV last week, which was really
Yeah,
fun.
it was very
And talk
cool.
about my food tours.
I will link to, well, to your website, but also to the video, where you're explaining about the tours. Can we mention where the tours are located?
Yeah, I'm in
So
Denver, Colorado.
okay. So if you're in the Denver area too, this is definitely something that you can take advantage of. It's not necessarily, you don't need to be gluten free to take these tours. I want to just mention that because there are a lot of, it's just a great way. Like if you have somebody in the family, we think my husband might have celiac disease. It was
Mm.
something that we thought he had 10 years ago, but not funny. He was diagnosed with cancer, so we ruled that out. But even today, I still think he has trouble with gluten. And so, whether it's your partner or just somebody in your family, or just a really close friend, like this is a great way to explore in your local community, at least in Denver, like in the Denver community, who is creating products that are gluten free? There actually are a lot of breweries that you go to, right?
Hmm. Yeah, so the only female-owned gluten-free brewery is in Colorado, which I just
That's
think is so
crazy.
badass.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So we go to a stop. We don't go to her brewery because it's a little bit out. It's like not downtown.
Yeah.
But we try her beer, and I'm just a huge supporter of locally owned businesses, especially
Yeah.
female-owned businesses. Like I just
Yeah.
think she's fantastic.
I think that's so great. And so and then some of the brands that you showed, like in the TV segment that you had, were gluten free, but or some are like gluten light. I don't know how do you describe it? Like they were semi gluten, not totally
No,
free.
they were gluten free. It's just like they've been super smart in not marketing to only the gluten free community. So one of the
Hmm.
newscasters, he referred to another one that is gluten reduced, which I
Okay.
didn't
Yeah.
have on display, but that's what he was referring to.
Okay.
And for gluten free people, it's awesome. It's just like I don't do gluten reduced beer because they start with gluten and they take it out.
Got it.
Um, but no, it's really cool. There's it's called Stem Ciders is the other tap house that we
Hmm.
go to.
Hmm.
And they really don't even market to the fact that they're gluten free because cider places have just become so popular.
Wow. Okay. I love that. We have a local cider, I don't know what to call it, cider brewery here, where I live in Northern California, but I don't know about if they have any gluten-free options. So now I've got to go discover that um, on my own there. But I just also really love and value about you, Carrie, like that again, that sense of community and really fostering relationships with people in the community, and celebrating, the women entrepreneurs, or celebrating people in the community who there's a need for this. There's an interest in having gluten-free tours, but also with the books as well, just being able to give back to the community and having that little library out front. And who doesn't like beer and books? Like this is a great way to you could come.
Ooh,
I'm trying
that's
to combine
another
these topics
idea.
together. Like I don't know. So yeah. Oh, you could do gluten-free and then maybe some bookshops, like a little tour of bookshops.
Yeah.
I don't
Oh
know.
my gosh,
Just putting that out there.
I love that. And I will just say, Sarah, last night I came home and I was sitting in my room, which is at the front of the house. So I could
Hmm.
see the library from my window.
Yeah.
And I saw two people with a stroller and a kid walk up, and I just was so
Oh,
happy. Like, just so
I
happy.
love that. So, Carrie, well, let me ask you, we're going to go back to books for a second. I wanted to ask you about your favorite book as a child. Was there a particular book
Hmm,
that stands out for you?
that's a great question. I feel like I loved Curious George.
I did too. I loved that. My that brings back so many memories of my mom was a preschool teacher and she had a monkey puppet named Morris, and he was very, very naughty. And
Oh.
the when he got out of line, she would she had like somebody made like dill pickle stickers, and she would put a dill pickle sticker on the naughty monkey puppet, and then he'd start to behave again because he hated dill pickles. So anyway, that was a really random tangent. I love that you love Curious Storage. Let me ask you what your current favorite authors are now. And I know that they might not necessarily be fiction. I know you love nonfiction. So, what are some of your favorite nonfiction books?
These are good questions. Although I am reading, I couldn't tell you who the author is, but I really
That's okay.
love like mystery and
Same.
kind of those kind of books.
Yeah.
So
Thrillers, maybe?
yeah, so I am reading one of those right now because I have to make myself read certain genres, right? Because I'm like all the time reading personal development and
Yeah.
business, and like that's who I am, but it can also make you a little crazy at times.
It could be like, I get overloaded with like, oh my God, I have all these tips that I need to start putting into my life so I could be a better person. And I'm overwhelmed. So then I want to pick up a mystery book.
Exactly. So that's what I do. So right now I have a mystery book. I actually went to the park yesterday and like forced
Nice.
myself to read for an hour because I was like, it's such a nice day out. I want to go outside and not bring, like my phone or a book that is on business.
I love that. Favorite authors though. I know like Joe Dispenza is a favorite,
I love Joe
maybe.
Dispenza.
Okay.
I do. One of my favorite books I've read recently, if you're an entrepreneur, that I highly,
Mhm.
highly recommend, and I love his podcast too, is Noah Kagan.
Okay.
He wrote a book called Million Dollar Weekend,
Mm.
and it is some of the best no BS business advice out there, hands down.
I love that. Yeah, because I think there are a lot of people who have created side hustles for themselves. Some of them, some of our listeners are also retired, but may have a little side business. And this is a great way to kind of scale that up a little bit and just learn and elevate more about your business. So great. Okay, I will have to link to that too. Any other favorites that have really changed you, for example?
I mean, I love Derek Sivers, the books I
Okay.
mentioned. So if you go onto his website, he's very off the grid.
Yeah.
He's an insanely successful entrepreneur who you will not find much on. But he sold CD Baby for like, I don't remember, 20, 40
Oh
million in
yeah.
like
100 years ago.
years ago. Yeah. And gave all the money to charity except a tiny percentage that he put in a trust for himself and his kid. The rest he gave away. So he's a
Wow.
cool guy. But his books are awesome and they're super easy to read. Like you can read them in a short amount of time. Um,
Love
so I
that.
can't tell you all the names of them, but he has like a four
That's okay.
pack you can buy that are
Cool.
all great. They're like 40 lessons in whatever, like hell yes or no, I think is one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. We'll have to check those out. Um, Lastly, I wanted to just go into some more detail from you, Carrie, because I know that time and freedom independence is really important to you so that you are able to live a life where you can afford to, go to the park and read a book or um, enjoy a gluten-free beer whenever, and with friends. And like, so tell us a little bit more about what that means. Like, how do you have more time freedom? And how do you, sounds to me like a little bit of financial education and like putting your finances first, as well as building a business for yourself that allows you to, as you've already done, like travel and live in Vietnam for extended periods of time.
Yeah. So the only tattoo I have on my body is a tattoo that says free.
Love it.
And it's because it's my core value.
Yeah.
I kind of fight with myself sometimes of like, oh, I could, like, for example, I was just at Airbnb headquarters this week. They flew us out
Yeah.
because I'm a community leader, and like what they offer people is insane. Like the perks that they have at these tech companies, right? Like
Oh, yeah.
wild,
I
wild.
know. Yes. They are
Yeah.
wild.
So I have these thoughts of like, ooh, but then to me personally, and this is not everyone, but I look at so many insanely successful people I know that have no time. And so
Yeah.
I just never wanted to be that person because I'm so relationship based and I want to have time for people in my life and also have
Mhm.
time for the things that matter to me, just like personally, right? Like I
Right.
value fitness and travel, and like if I'm working all the time I can't go do those things.
No.
um but it's interesting because I met some great people at our leader event, and we went and did an Airbnb experience. One of our days we went on an electric biking tour. It was so fun.
Oh, fun.
And yeah, we got like 3 hours all over the city and like a personal tour guide. It was awesome.
Wow.
um, but I was telling one of the guys that I met, like, I do best in these scenarios where I'm out traveling because I want to get my work done faster because
Yeah.
I want to go experience things. If
Yeah.
I'm just in like my day to day mundane life, I can easily drag things out. And that whole premise, which is true of like, you'll fill the time you have, you really will. Like, if you
Yeah.
think a task is going to take you 12 hours, it's going to take you 12 hours. So I don't know. I've messed up a lot. I've done a lot the wrong way.
Yeah.
But to me, it's figuring out like what kind of skills do you have that you can turn into making money off of,
Mhm. Yeah.
And it's that intersection of what you actually enjoy doing as well. Because
100%.
maybe in your 20s it sounds fun to like do whatever for money, but at this age I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah, no. Um, I think also so that's really helpful. I think kind of what I hear you saying, it's also is we all have 24 hours in a day, and and if you want to balance things out and you want to do those things that you love, and you want to, spend an hour and a half or 2 hours working out, you can make the time for that. You're deciding what you're putting your time toward, what's of value to you. And I think part of also what you do is you help people to figure out like what are those skills that they can offer, and how to build a lifestyle around not only just being, and it doesn't necessarily have to be location independence, but it can be how to build more time for your family, how to not be working all the time but still get your work done in a smart, efficient way that makes sense. So yeah.
Exactly. And I think the main thing, and I have to tell myself this 9,000 times a day, but like make sure you're actually building the life that you want, not the
Right.
one your friends tell you to want or the internet tells you to want. Like it's
Hmm.
so easy to get in the trap, right? And it's so subtle and it's so fast. And then all of a sudden you feel crappy about your life when 10 minutes ago you weren't on your phone and you felt amazing and wonderful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Ugh, so good. Well, Carrie, thank you for your time today. This was super fun. I
Thanks
hope
for having me.
Absolutely. I just wanted to give everyone a taste of how cool Carrie Veatch is, and that you should absolutely go check her out. Her website is setyourselffree.llc.com. And then I'll also have a link to your Insta account. And you should check out For Gluten's Sake on YouTube, because that's really good. And I'll have the TV interview as well. But thank you for sharing yourself with us. I really appreciate you. Love you so much. And
Love
yeah,
you.
thank
Thank
you.
you.